All right, welcome to the Elite Agent Podcast. I have a special guest with me today, Kelly Garcia. How long have we known each other?
Oh, geez. Well, at 15 years.
Is it 15?
I hit 15 years with Equity June, and it's the end of June. Oh, 15
Happy
years.
15 years.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So how long have you been in real estate overall? Because I know I wasn't your first brokerage.
Yeah, 17.
So
spent 2 years with another brokerage, and I've spent 15.
Then repented, saw the light, made a switch.
Right, absolutely.
You poor unfortunate soul.
I realized I was home.
Sorry, I just quoted Little Mermaid there. I don't know if everybody caught it, but remember that?
Oh,
repented,
yeah.
seen the light, made a switch.
I remember.
Yeah.
Little Mermaid. I remember seeing that in the theaters.
Who was that? Who's the name of the old witch?
Ursula?
Ursula?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's part of her song,
Yeah.
right?
I
Poor
remember.
Unfortunate souls. Yeah.
Yeah, there you
I
go.
think it is. All right. You're good.
A little bit of Little Mermaid and real estate.
Little Mermaid and real estate. Did we just infringe on Disney copyright, Jake?
You didn't hit the tune well enough.
All right.
Honesty is the best policy.
Well, Kelly, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here with us today. So you've been in real estate now 17 years.
Yeah.
15 of which you've been with me.
Yes.
So we've seen a lot of ups and downs together. The crash in '08, the recent crash, not quite as bad as '08, but still traumatic for a lot of people. We're seeing almost 20% of agents dropping out. There's a lot of agents that think that's good. Obviously, if you're the ones dropping out, you don't. But it separates the herd for sure. And a lot of the experiences that you've been through, helping you ride because it hasn't been easy for you either, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
08.
it's been a ride for sure.
Yeah, in '08, you were just telling me that you had to go get a part-time job or something at,
Yeah.
where was it?
Yeah. So after the crash, it was '08, fall of '08, I went and got a part-time job serving at Olive Garden just to help supplement my family at the time. So, and I did that. And actually that was a great opportunity for me. Little did I know at the time.
Because of the never-ending soup and salad? Or-
Ooh, great for my hips with the breadsticks, but no, just a lot of business came from me serving at Olive Garden.
So I wanted to ask you about that, and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here because there's other questions that typically I'd come up with first. But since we started out this way, talking about how long we've been doing this and the ups and downs and everything, back in '08, things are tough. You know, I mean, lots of agents failed, lots of people went into foreclosure. I mean, it was really a nightmare scenario. For the first time in my career, I'm faced short sales. Nobody had ever heard of short sales before. That was brand new for everybody. We're seeing all sorts of new things. And for you, scrambling to make ends meet, right?
Yeah.
And so you go out and you get a job. And the reason why I want to bring this up is because I do think it pertains to today, because a lot of real estate agents do struggle to make this a full-time job. And I don't think there's any shame in that.
No.
Because it's very hard, especially when you're just getting into real estate and you've got a family that already has bills. It's one thing if you're 19, you're living with mom and dad, whatever. But when you've got a family and you've got bills to pay, no matter what, it's really hard to jump into a new career where the paycheck is, number one, it's not guaranteed.
Yeah.
And even if you do get one, it may be 3 or 4 months out. So most people start out part-time. You know, they're trying to juggle both. And I think this is very relatable. And we may have a lot of agents right now listening to this that are thinking, oh yeah, that's me right now. Like, I'm struggling and I don't know if I can keep doing this full-time. Like, I've got to really buckle down. I've got bills to pay. And so you actually, I liked what you said earlier, is that you actually, that opened doors for you in real estate.
Yeah, it did.
So tell me how you capitalized on that.
Well, part of my business is I'm not afraid to talk to people. And like you said, there was no shame in me going to be a server. And actually, when I knew that I needed to have a little more income coming in, because I was putting my husband at the time through the master's program at school, we had our debt there, we had our mortgage, we had 2 kids. And I really hate debt, so I found a way to not have to get into more debt. And so when I was there, I was just not afraid to tell people who I was and what I was doing and why I was there. A lot of people would be like, wow, I've never had a server like you that was so attentive and talkative and personable. And I was just never afraid to talk to these people and tell them who I was. I don't have shame in who I am because I'm a hard worker and I'm a go-getter and an overachiever. And I think that's what kind of has set me apart in this business is there is no shame.
This is one of the most common things that come up in my regular weekday classes. You know, I meet with a group of agents up at the office, and my challenge this year has been into habits, talking to people, setting appointments. I'm sure most of them listening are like, what did you say as a server? Here's your breadsticks. And by the way, do you want
Here's
to buy
my
or sell a
card.
house? Yeah, I mean, how did that come up? How does that come up naturally? I mean, obviously you're a people person.
Yeah.
You're very easy to talk to, but how does somebody bring that up in a different workplace? How did you do it as a server?
For me as a server, I absolutely love people and I'm always interested in their story. So getting to know them right off the bat, I just have a genuine interest in people and learning more about them. I feel like any successful person has learned from other people. And I would just start with those kind of conversations, learning about them, getting to know them, and in return, they wanted to get to know me and who I was. And I felt like that really built a connection. And there's people that I worked with that I actually ended up helping buy and sell homes. And there's people that came in that I would meet for the first time, and we would find a common interest and just kind of bounce off of that. And it would work into a conversation that would end up leading us to real estate and how they needed my services.
You know, I actually talk about that in my training program when we talk about working with our sphere of influence. And I'm trying to help people go back into, because most of us, I'll use myself as an example. A couple weeks ago, I got together with some college friends, right? I would probably define them as some of my best friends. One I see once every 5 years, one I haven't seen for over a decade, and the most often one lives 15 minutes away from me, and I helped him buy his house. And I see him maybe once a year. My closest friends.
Wow. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't know that that's atypical for a guy. I think it would be atypical for a girl. But for guys, I think it's maybe a little more natural. But when I train people and we talk about working with your sphere of influence, we're like, we can be better friends. You know? Now, I do remember their birthdays. You know, I'll reach out to them on their birthdays. I don't see them a lot, but I do talk to them a little bit more, because I have a database. Otherwise,
Yes.
I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
Facebook.
Yeah.
That reminds you.
But I do talk about with your sphere of influence,
Yeah.
here's how this training can help you be a better friend. And you're reaching back into the past, talking to friends from high school. And you can't go back to a friend from high school that you haven't talked to in 10 years and say, oh, hey, are you interested in buying or selling? Because you haven't maintained that relationship enough to the point where that doesn't come across as insincere,
Yeah.
you know? But when you do what you said and you just start talking to them, like, hey, I haven't talked to you for a long time. Catch me up on your life. I'm trying to be a better friend.
Yeah.
And this is the exact script that I talk about when you're reconnecting with people from your past. I'm trying to be a better friend. Catch me up on your life. What's going on? And then naturally they ask you, well, what are you up to? Well, I've been doing real estate now for a few years. It's kind of fun. And, oh, by the way, if you want, I could get your email address. I do this little newsletter that I do, you know.
Yeah.
But I like that you said that. Just even people that you've never talked to before, you start asking them questions about their life. They ask you back. And then it's not really weird for you to say, well, I do this, and I'm also a real estate agent. And
Yeah.
is that kind of how?
Absolutely. And the connection that you're building has to start with a genuine connection.
It does.
Or if it's surfaced, it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And obviously, the energy that you're producing out there will determine whether that conversation will escalate or not. And I was just really fortunate to meet a lot of great people who I was able to find a common interest or a common person we know. Let's get real. Like, everybody here knows everybody. There is not one person that you can't find one connection with. At least that's been my experience.
Yeah.
And specifically, I'm thinking of a couple that came in on their date night, and I was serving them, and we just had a great conversation. And it was probably an hour in that we realized that we lived in the same neighborhood, and not too close, but in the same city, I should say.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it was like, hey, do you know so-and-so? Do you know so-and-so? And it was like, yeah. And that was really cool because we were able to exchange information there, and I was able to exchange it with my card. I always had my cards on me at that time.
Okay.
And I exchanged it with that, and that's kind of how the realtor got brought up. However, I've had 4 transactions come from that relationship that I met this couple on their date night serving at Olive Garden. You just can't ever be too afraid to talk to people.
So it sounds like, I mean, from that experience at least, that a lot of, because one of the questions I like to ask people is, where do you typically get your business from? A lot of agents listening, they want to hear how other agents are getting business. And for some, smile and dial, investor specialists, but for most agents, it's their sphere of influence.
Yeah.
Is that is that where you get most of your business from, repeat business? Is it just maintaining these relationships now and then
Yes, and
constantly
I feel
developing new ones?
very lucky and fortunate to have built such good relationships through transactions with clients that they do refer to me. I have a family who I've actually had 8 transactions from
Wow.
them with everybody that they know because there's a genuine interest at the beginning and that escalates through the whole relationship or that continues through the whole relationship. We like you said, we remember birthdays, we remember anniversaries. And I'll be honest with you, like, I'm actually not that good. If I don't put it into my calendar, I'm not going to remember.
Yeah.
But I love the fact that when I do see it, I'm going to take the time to send them a personal letter, to Marco Polo them. I love Marco Polo. I don't know if a lot
Do
of
ya?
people use that, but it brings up everybody that's in your contacts in your phone and it'll say, hey, it's so-and-so's birthday. You want to send them a Marco Polo? And I'm like, what better than for them to see my face telling them and singing them totally off tune a Marco Polo happy birthday. And I don't know if people really care about that or not, but that's just me. That's who I am. I love to put myself out there. I'm not afraid to embarrass myself and because I genuinely care about them.
Yeah. I just call it for me, it depends on the relationship level I have. Like just this morning, one of our agents popped up and I just texted him. I know him, but not well enough that I'm going to sing to him. But one of my brokers popped up just, I think, the day before.
Uh-huh.
And it was, what's today, Wednesday? So this would have been Monday. Her name popped up and her and her husband were driving across country in the middle. I'm like, has anybody saying happy birthday to you yet? And they're a little bit older generation, so
Sure.
And she's like, well, no. And so I'm like, here we go.
But that's what makes you fun, and that's what
It's
makes them
fun.
remember you,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And I sang the primary version, and they didn't grow up in primary or anything
Yeah.
like that. So I had to explain, this is where I learned it from. I was from attending primary with my kids.
You've had a birthday, shout hooray.
Oh, that's
Is
a good
that the
one.
one?
No,
Oh,
it
it was
was
a different one.
It was happy birthday. Tony
So and
was her
so,
name.
dear.
Tony, dear.
Happy days will come to
That's
you
the
while
one.
you're.
I have a repertoire. I've got a couple different languages, and sometimes I'll
Okay.
give them a choice. You want a different language? You want primary? What version do you want? Are any of
that's
those
fun.
copyrighted, Jake?
She was on tune, so I'll check.
Oh shoot!
Anyways,
that's
yeah, it's
funny.
fun.
Yeah,
It's
it
fun.
is fun.
And I'm not naturally as sociable as you are. Like for me, I'm not joking. I have to use my software to help me be a better friend. Some people are naturally caring. We interviewed Shelby Palmer. You said that was one of your favorite interviews that you
Yeah.
had listened to a while back. And you're like that. You just naturally care about people. I'm more clinical, and it's not necessarily bad.
Yeah.
It means that I'm good with systems, which sometimes people that are very caring aren't as good with systems, because they love the people aspect.
Yes.
And when we say, okay, you need to get better at the computer aspect or the paper aspect, they're like, I don't want to do that. I hate that stuff. I just want to, I want to play with my people, right? So I've got strengths that I like. They've served me well.
Yeah.
But I've got weaknesses as well. And one of the ways that I address my weaknesses is with technology. And if I don't get their information and put it in my computer or my database or whatever, and I don't see that reminder, I'm not a very good friend, because I don't wake up every morning thinking, whose life can I
Well,
make better?
Let me be honest. I'm a very people person.
You are.
But I can't remember people's birthdays. I need the systems in place as well. And there's probably tons of my clients that I've missed certain anniversaries or birthdays because I am out there interacting probably too much instead of sitting at my computer and working my systems in the morning,
Yeah.
my morning routine. So it's balance.
There's ways for all
balance
of us.
in all things.
There's ways for all of us to improve
There
as
is,
well.
absolutely.
Okay, so would you say that most of your business comes from working with your sphere of influence?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, or just
And
people I meet.
Are
all the time.
there specific things that you do to maintain relationships?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, where do I start? Uh,
Anywhere, any
I love that you
stories,
mentioned
anything that
systems
you
because I feel like as an agent, the one thing that most agents that I talk to are lacking is systems in place, routines.
Mhm.
And for me, I do better if I have a morning routine. Like I get on my computer and I open up my CRM and I start looking at those things because there's going to be days that I don't, and that's when I miss opportunities to
Yeah.
reach out to other people.
Yep. Yeah, and that's where my strength is, but even then, I've got areas to improve because I wake up and I've got my calendar, I've got time blocking, everything done, but I got into my CRM and I hadn't been on there for like the weekend, and somebody 3 days ago, "Hey, what about this?" And I'm like, "Well, now I'm 3 days late.
Yeah.
That doesn't look great, you
Right.
know?" And so even where that is my strong point, I still have areas to improve in that. But
Isn't that the best though? Is it doesn't matter what you're in, it's a growth mindset. And there's always room for improvement.
And I actually love that about this industry is that I've got a quote that I use in my training that this comes from, I'm going to have to go look up the book, The E-Myth.
I love the E-Myth.
Yeah.
I love the E-Myth.
But he says, and I'm going to butcher the quote, but great people wake up every day working on their lives, not just in their lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and we have a unique opportunity here as real estate agents to improve ourselves constantly, and it makes it fun.
Absolutely.
How boring would it be if you were just like going in and punching clock and doing the same thing over and over and over, and you get an annual review?
Well, if it was fun, we would be doing it, right? And that's
wouldn't
kind
be
of how I
doing
got
this.
into real estate is I worked at a job 8 to 5 and I said, "No way, this is not me."
What was it that caused you to get into real estate?
Oh, geez.
You said you've been in it for a long
So
time,
I
but
have. So a little background on me. My grandpa was actually a real estate broker and owned his
Okay.
own brokerage in Idaho. He passed away when I was 10, so I'm not familiar with a lot of that happened, but my uncle took it over. And I remember going up to Malad, Idaho, and
that's where I was born.
is it really?
Yes.
Wow. Okay, small world.
Yeah.
And he had a daughter, and I just admired her, and we'd go and sit in his real estate office, and that was kind of my introduction into real estate.
Okay.
And then my aunt was the Weber County assessor, and so right out of high school, I went to Weber State, and she said, "You can come work for me." So I was working at the assessor's office for Weber County, and that's when I learned that I am not an 8 to 5 girl. I do not like sitting in the same place with no natural light, talking to the same people all day long because I'm a people person, but I need to have new opportunities, new people to talk to. I need sunlight.
Yeah.
I need to be moving all the time. Sitting
Yeah.
at a desk in a cubicle didn't work for me.
Yeah.
So after that, I ended up being a store manager at a store in the mall. I thought that was going to be perfect, right? That'll be great for me. I had this opportunity come up. I actually, when I worked at the Weber County Assessor's Office, I went and got a Christmas job at a store in the mall because I just needed more. I'm not one that likes to sit still.
Yeah.
So I went and got that, and then that's how this opportunity to open up a new store at the Layton Hills Mall, and they wanted me to be the assistant manager, and then that led to the store manager. But then I quickly learned that as much as I really loved those opportunities to meet new people, I did not like being in the same place all the time. I needed to move a lot.
Yeah.
And I had met somebody who was a realtor, and she started talking to me and being like, "You would be so good at this." And I considered it, and then I started thinking about, my background and my my grandpa's business, and I thought I could do this. I could really do this. I've always loved homes. My parents would take us to model homes all the time when I was in high school for fun dates. I'd be like, let's go to the model houses. And my dates were like, what? It's like, that sounds so odd. But I really, really enjoyed it. And so I thought this would be a great opportunity. And I didn't skip a beat. I went to school, graduated 3 months later, and I went out on my own.
Wow.
So
That's a great story.
yeah.
I didn't know all that. I actually, my grandpa was a real estate agent.
Really?
And I didn't learn that until I got my real estate license. And then
Oh.
my mom's like, oh, by the way, did you know this? But he'd passed away when I was, I think, 2.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's kind of fun.
That
There's
is
some
fun.
similarities there in our stories.
Absolutely.
So you've been doing this for a while. We said earlier 17 years now. And you've consistently been a high-performing agent. We all have our ups and downs. Market conditions change, sometimes dramatically.
Yeah.
But you've weathered it all, and you're constantly performing really well. One of the things that I know that you like that helps you stand out is interior design.
Yes.
Now, for me personally, I don't know if you've looked around at my house. I've been here 2 years. I have one wall with my family pictures on it, and that's all I've done for decorating. Like, I don't know what to do. I have 0 decorations, and quite frankly, I'm a dude. I don't care. I'm fine with it. I've got my eye on some art for my birthday that I want to get. But I'm one of these people that I walk into a house, and I have a really hard time visualizing what could be.
Yeah.
Now, somebody with a love for interior design, like you expressed earlier, how has that helped you in your business? How have you been able to help your clients being able to visualize things and communicate that to them?
I'm passionate about it. I love to go into homes and see the homes for what they can be, not what they are. Obviously, you can't change a lot of the bones of the home. So it's really seeing the home past the paint, past the fixtures, past the home decor. Now, a lot of people can't see that. I have buyers who get fixated on the paint, the red wall. Like, they could not. Actually, my second listing ever, they had a multi-level where you walk in and it has the big vaulted ceiling from the whatever little living room they have to the kitchen, and they had painted it pink. And they were very happy about this pink wall. They loved it. It made it their home. Well, I had said to them, we might need to paint this. And they were like, no, because they loved it. They had this emotion attached to this pink wall. Well, we had it listed, and we had a ton of traffic. And nobody would pinpoint what it was that their buyers didn't like about this house. Until one day somebody said, my buyer walked in and said, that pink wall's got to go. So I advised the sellers to paint that pink wall to see what would happen. Because obviously when they go to sell the home, they need to make it somebody else's and not theirs anymore. They've got to take the emotion out of it. They've got to take the family pictures down, all of those things that wouldn't relate to other buyers that are looking. And they painted that wall, and they were hesitant. They did not really want to paint that pink wall, but they did it. And we had multiple offers the second day after showing it.
Really?
So it's really interesting how buyers can get just fixated on one thing in that house, whether it's a smell, whether it's a pink wall, a red wall. I get a lot of red walls, just like the pink walls
I
where
did
people
an
can't.
orange one. 2 of my last 3 houses, I've had this deep orange that I loved. I'd walk into the room and I'm just like, oh, it's like a sunrise. And everybody else walks in like, oh,
Ugh.
shit.
Yeah, because they attach an emotion to that color.
Yeah.
So for me, I think what sets me apart is helping these people see past those things. To go in there and say, oh, you could do this to the home. I really like to get to know. I like to sit down with my buyers before we go out so I can get to know them. I can educate them and walk them through the process of what it's going to be like so that I can set their expectations up.
Yeah.
And that helps me understand them on a different level. So when we do go through these homes, I can understand what it is they're looking for and help them see this house could become that.
You're helping me get to know myself. Because Malad dragons,
Or orange.
orange
Yes?
and black, my favorite colors.
Oh my heck.
I'm doing a little therapy here with you. I'm like,
Something about the inner child in us is
all
what
coming
makes us do
home.
everything, right?
I think that's funny.
Yeah.
So, but you're able to communicate that Because again,
Yes.
people that don't have vision,
Yes.
you're able to help paint this picture for them and say, this is what you could do, or help sellers
Absolutely.
actually paint the wall,
Helping
not just.
sellers is actually really beneficial because a lot of people, they put their house up for sale and they just don't have any idea what other buyers are looking for.
Mm-hmm.
I am very good at coming in and helping sellers understand and remove that emotion from their house so that they can get the most amount of money out of their home by removing those items, by changing a color of paint, or maybe moving furniture around. A lot of people have furniture that works for their family in set up in a way that is more realistic for their family. But when it comes to show, it's closing off that space. We need to open up that space so buyers can visualize their stuff in there and actually get to fill the space that that home has.
That's a great skill.
Yeah.
So I like that. That's a great, unique selling proposition for you
Yes.
that helps you stand out. And it's cool that it's something that you're passionate about.
Yeah. I actually have a basement full of home decor that I help my sellers stage their homes
Oh, you do?
when they need it. And I like to go into people's houses and use the stuff they already have.
Yeah.
However, I have a lot of stuff that I bring into my houses. I would say 90% of my houses, a lot of the staging materials came from my basement.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's awesome. Cool. So you do interior design. You build great ties with your sphere of influence. You're not afraid to talk to new people, add new people. You've got room to grow with systems, getting
Yeah.
into the database on a daily basis. But through the course of these 17 years, what would you say is one of the most important things, words of advice that you would give to another agent about staying in the business? How do you get that longevity in an industry where 80 to 85% are failing in their first year? What advice would you give to people?
Don't give up on your dream. If it's important to you, you'll find a way. If not, you'll find an excuse. And that is my favorite saying of all times because there's good, better, and best. And sure, like your best would be your dream job, and good would be a consistent paycheck. But if it's important to you, you will find a way to have the best job, not the good job, and not settle. And honestly, for most agents, they stop learning, they stop growing, and they get comfortable. I know there's been times in my business where I just got really comfortable with where I was, but then that comfort did not allow my business to grow, to expand to the degree that to expand to the potential that it had.
So you say never stop learning.
Yeah.
What does that translate into you?
Oh, that's deep, actually, because you can never stop learning about yourself. You can never stop learning about the market. You can never stop learning about other people. There's always room to grow. And I think it's so important to have a morning routine because first you have to take care of yourself. And if you're taking care of yourself, then everything else in your life has room to grow because you'll have the energy and the strength to do so. And it's people who stopped self-care is when they see halts or plateaus in their business because they're not taking care of themselves. And if you don't take care of yourselves, you can't take care of others.
I really feel like I'm in a therapy session. Like I want to pull out my phone and take notes. So, like we said, 17 years, longevity, all this stuff. And the key is to not give up on your dreams.
Yeah.
But not everybody's dream is the same.
No.
We were talking about this a little bit earlier, and we've interviewed some agents that are just doing massive amounts of volume.
Yeah.
And you were saying, that's not my dream.
No.
So describe your dream, because when we were talking earlier and you were describing it, I'm like, I think that dream is more relatable for more people than the lifestyle of somebody that's closing massive volume every year. So you're a consistent, strong performer. Let's make that clear. But your dream isn't closing 100 deals a year.
No, it's not. My dream is to find balance between family and work.
Okay.
My kids' soccer games, their sporting events, their activities that they're involved in, I want to be there and I'm going to find a way to be there.
Yeah.
And I will find balance. That is one thing I love about this job is that I create my own schedule. I can make my kids' events important to me, so I can work around that with my clients. The one thing that I would say that has been really successful for me in my business is I set boundaries with my clients. I let them know that I am not available 24/7. However, they are very important to me. And my phone shuts off at 8 o'clock at night and it goes back on at 8 o'clock in the morning. And so when I meet with my clients, I let them know, hey, I put my phone on silent from 8 to 8. You're welcome to text me, because a lot of people will wake up in the middle of the night and be like, oh my gosh, what about this? And they just feel like they have to tell me.
Yeah.
They're free to tell me, but they're not, they can't expect me to respond to them until after 8 a.m.
I love that. I teach that same thing in my training, and I'm not the same hours as you because I've got my dream life.
Sure.
And it's not at 8 p.m. that it shuts off. My dream life shuts off at 6. But the same thing.
I wish mine could shut off
Same,
at 6,
same
but
thing.
it's
You-
not
you know,
realistic
you
in
can
my
text
world.
me, you can contact me. If it's an emergency, I'll do my very best to return your phone call. But I'm not solving lots of problems after 6 p.m. Lenders have gone home, title companies gone home, lots of
Sure.
people have checked out. You know, you can express things to me, but we're not solving a lot of problems after this. So let's have some work-life balance. I love that you
that's
have
fair.
that. I don't interview a lot of people that have made that a practice. And even more importantly, you've made it a practice to communicate. To me, that's the same as posting your hours on your door. You know, if you had a storefront and you walk up and people are walking up and they're trying it and it's locked, that's so frustrating. But when you walk up and you see hours posted and you're like, oh, I'm half hour outside of this time. I'm not
Absolutely.
frustrated with you, the business owner. You posted it.
Absolutely.
And I'll come back the very next day within your hours and I'm happy.
Yes.
And so when I did that for the very first year and I actually started to get some work-life balance by communicating these things, I actually had happier clients. I went from 80 hours a week down to about 45 or 50, and I increased my business by 50%. I fully expected to take a massive pay cut. I expected to have, you know, my pay be reduced by as much as I reduced my hours. And the exact opposite happened. I increased my pay 50% and cut my hours by nearly 50%. Because I was happier.
Yeah.
And I think that came across to people.
And again, that's part of your self-care. That's taking
There you
care of
go.
yourself. And if you have that in place, your business can grow. You have to take care of you first. And whatever that means, whether it's your morning routine or maybe for you, it's that night. You have to have that night. When you take care of yourself, you can take care of your clients so much better.
I love that.
That sounds really funny.
No, I love
but
that.
you
I
do.
think that seriously, it feels like a therapy appointment for me. Okay.
And for me, real quick, I just think it's really important to say, what is my dream? What is my dream and how am I going to make that a reality? Because some people's dream is to close 100 houses a year. That's not my dream. My dream is to live a successful, well-balanced life, but I don't need to have millions of dollars to do that.
Yeah.
I'm pretty simple. I can have a simpler life that has more interaction with the people that I love the most and still be debt-free and still be able to vacation.
Yeah. We're actually exactly the same in that way. I've always felt that through my entire career. In fact, I haven't had the dream of, I remember having the dream of being a millionaire while I was in college and didn't have kids. But once I had kids, I'm like, sure, that would be fun.
Yeah.
But look at all the sacrifices you have to make. And I would see people say, you make sacrifices today, you know, you live like nobody else is willing to today so that tomorrow you can live like nobody else can. And I'm like, tomorrow my kids won't be here.
And tomorrow's not granted.
Yeah.
That's what I
And
keep telling
today
myself.
I have my
Tomorrow's not
kids.
granted.
I'm not going to sacrifice every minute I have with my kids today
Yes.
so that I can have a future without my kids.
Right.
And have a lot
What's
of
the
money.
point
It
of
just,
having kids?
yeah,
Right?
didn't make sense to me. Exactly.
What's the point?
Okay, so we've talked about advice that you would give to people that have been around, you know, longevity,
Yes.
right? To not give up on their dream. Would you give any different advice? The last question I always like to ask is, what advice would you give to a brand new agent that's watching this podcast? What advice would you give them to help them be in that top 15% that survives or thrives rather than the 85% that say, this is too hard, I can't do it?
Ooh, I have like several things that have come to my mind.
Okay.
One, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to talk to people. Don't be afraid to be yourself. Don't be afraid to ask for business. And two, follow up. Follow up, follow up, follow up. You always have to follow up. You will lose business left and right without follow-up. I've experienced that in the past where they're like, oh, well, I didn't know you were still doing real estate. And I was like, what? How did you not know? Well, that's my fault because I didn't continue to follow up. I didn't keep you up to date with what's going on in the market, where your house is at, which has led me into my new systems. I put them in place so that I am constantly on their 1-year anniversary, sending them an updated market analysis on their home, trying to reach out on their birthdays.
Okay, so I was going to make the comment about following up because to me that's directly associated with number one is don't be afraid, because most of the time I'm not following up because I'm afraid. And I keep playing these scenarios in my mind that is, oh, well, they didn't call me back. They've probably found somebody else. They're avoiding my call. They don't like me. And then when, I guess my rule that I've always put into play is it's their job to say no to me, not my job to say no to myself.
Yeah,
And so I will keep going until they say no. And I've tried to follow that rule. And 9 times out of 10, not always, there is that 1 time out of 10 where they didn't like me and they found somebody else and they didn't want to call me back because it was an awkward conversation.
Sure.
But the other 9 times is like, oh yeah, sorry, we've been in Disneyland for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And I've played every scenario in my head. Disneyland was not one of them. It was, they hate me, they found somebody else, because they're not even responding to me. They're on
Yes.
vacation. They're in another country, whatever it is. They lost their phone, There's so many different reasons why people don't call me back. So I've gotten pretty good with my systems about trying to get them committed when I first meet them so I don't have this follow-up nightmare scenario.
Yeah.
But it's inevitable that we're going to have some of that. So don't be afraid and keep following up. And I would just add the third thing. It's their job to say no, not my job to say no to myself.
Right. And you have to give yourself some grace when those things happen, because they will happen. I had one just recently where, they knew I was a realtor. We've talked about it. They've asked me about their house and all of that. And I let 6 months go by, and the next thing I knew, their house was for sale. And I was like, oh my heck, what happened? Was I not good enough? And I just beat myself up.
Sons of bitches.
And at the end of the day, the husband was more in control, had the driver's seat, and one of his buddies from work or their buddies from work's wife was a realtor. And that's where they went. And I just have to give myself some grace. There's nothing that I could have done. There's things I could have done differently, but I did a good job. I just need to take it as it is and move on to the next client. There's enough business there's enough business for everybody to have business.
It's a big pie.
There's a big pie. And
There's
I
a
think
piece for everybody. But those people are still sons of bitches.
And I think that where realtors go wrong is they think we're all competing against each other. And in my world, I feel like there's enough business for everybody, and I want everybody to be successful. And if you see that in that light, it's easier to have grace for yourself when you didn't get the business, because then you're more happy for that person that did get the business. But don't give up. Don't give up. One last thing that I think is really important that I'm learning and I'm still continuing to apply to my life is confidence is very important in our industry, is having that confidence. And something I recently learned is confidence is making and keeping promises to yourself. That's how you're going to build your confidence.
Okay.
And I think that goes along with real estate, because if we are continuing to say, hey, I'm going to make 10 calls today, but then we don't, our confidence level just dropped because we didn't fulfill that. So we have to make realistic goals, set realistic expectations that we can meet so we can build our confidence and increase our business.
I love that. This is one of my favorite interviews ever. Kelly, thank you so much for
You're
joining me
welcome.
today.
You're very welcome.
It was fabulous having you on here.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
All right. And that's a wrap for today's episode. We hope you found the discussion valuable. Remember, if you're looking to take your own real estate career to the next level, be sure to visit eliteagenttraining.com for our exclusive training program. It doesn't matter if you're a brand new agent or a veteran in the industry. If you're looking to increase your business, this program will get you there. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe to our podcast for more valuable insights and tips. Until next time.